Welcome to the next episode of the Solo Experience. I'm your host, Ryan, and today we're going to talk about what are we talking about? Native contrast or native against brightness and where we sit on that. It's not going to get too technical, really technical at all. It's more of an opinion because I think this is a very opinionated subject on what is the happy medium. Because I think people are just looking for advice on where they should start. So that's what we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, what did we do this weekend? I don't even really remember. I did a lot of cleaning. I did some painting. I did had some customers in from Chicago. That was fun. Did a bunch of demos. Went over to Grant's house. They heard some JTR stuff. They loved that. Then came over here, did some more demos. We were in the Mad VR Experience Center for around 3 hours at very loud volume. Maybe not 3 hours, maybe 2 hours at 125 plus. And the biggest thing, one of the biggest takeaways they had there was my ears don't hurt. And it was very loud. And I probably damaged some of my hearing, as I always do. But 2 hours at 125, no ringing, no issues. May feel it the next couple days afterwards as your ears decompress. But that was a big takeaway from them. And that is the room and the equipment and the lack of distortion and compression that room offers. So that was a big thing on Saturday. Had them out all day, did some jack stack for barbecue. And then yesterday was just trying to get caught up on things. Daughter had a soccer game, went and saw that. And now the cold weather is here. And the cold weather is here, I think, to stay. Today is 25 degrees, which I think is the coldest it's been in Kansas so far this year. So it's not egregiously cold as it can be here, but it's the coldest we've gotten so far, beginning of November. And today I think is like a high of 40, something like that. So hopefully it warms up. Sun's going to freeze at soccer. Later in the week, we've got a soccer tournament this weekend, but I think the highs for the weekend are going to be somewhere in 65, maybe even 70 range. So hopefully that'll be okay. And then last on the news is I got the car for the new project I'm doing with teaching special needs people how to work on cars. But this car was a little bit misrepresented, which is unfortunate. He didn't disclose some of the issues when I asked him, hey, are there any cosmetic issues with the car? And his response was no, just your normal wear and tear on the front, rock chips and stuff. I mean, it's a 20-year-old car. I get it, but there was some fiberglass damage in different places, not just on the hood, but on the back. So that car is going back. He approved it. It's going back, getting refund. And I think instead of doing a Lotus, my heart is set on a C7Z06. So we'll see where that goes. I found a rebuilt title because we're doing the cheaper options. Found a rebuilt title, and I think it's going to be more exciting for the special people because this one's all murdered out. So we're going to see where that ends up going. I'm talking to the guy, so hopefully that ends up working out. If anybody's got a line on a Z06, I am open to potentially picking one up in the near future. So if you know of one that's out there that maybe has some high miles, rebuilt salvage title or something, or any other cool car, don't hesitate to shoot me a message. You can put this up there. You can send me a message by scanning that code. It'll take you to the contact section on the website. I don't think my phone number's there anymore. I took that down because I was getting a bunch of spam calls. Maybe it is there. If my phone number's there, don't hesitate to text me. Or if you've gotten emails or text or calls from me before, don't hesitate to reach out. So if you got a cool car and you think special people may think it's cool too, don't hesitate to reach out because I am looking for something for that project. But on to the topic. And if you guys have questions about anything, don't hesitate to drop them in chat either. I think I'm happy to answer them, or at least try and provide some guidance. Back from his stint at Horizon Home Theater Podcast, you becoming I think I was being used to get a tour of the home theater. I don't really think so. I don't think Don or those guys would do that. It was fun. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed coming on. They just wanted to go through the theater, and it's something different. So I know those guys. They've been a part of M-Wave for a long time. So it was good to spend some time with them. That was great. But on native contrast and brightness, this is subjective. No doubt about it. There is no really right way to do it because some people We've seen this in our own testing. Some people are going to side on the side of, I need absolute black floor. I need absolutely as the most native contrast I can get. And some people, other people, are on the complete opposite side and will say, well, as long as it's adequate for the native contrast, brightness is what I really care about. And the more I've shown people, at least with the Christie, brightness, they're like, oh, well, crap. I value that now really above everything else. So I think people, humans, are beings of light. We like light. We're like insects, drawn to the light, drawn to the flame. Uh, so my personal opinion, and chat, please do weigh in on this. My personal opinion on this is what is good enough? To me, ideal. And yes, being better would be great, but great scenario for me, like where I would have nothing to complain about, and I really don't have anything to complain about now, is 10,000 to 1 native contrast and 300 nits, which with a modified lens, I'm hoping I'm going to have time to test it today. I got the lens back. It's got a more aggressive modification in it. So I'm hoping it's going to push us closer to somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 to 1 for native contrast. That's my hope. And then you got Vader, variable dynamic range coming from Christie eventually. So my happy place, very, very happy place, is 10,001 native. And that's without dynamic or anything like that. That's just native contrast, what the projector can do. And then after that, 300 nits. And ideally, above 500 to 1 interesting contrast. The Christie is significantly higher than that, but above 501 interesting contrast. So we saw this in the comparison we all talked about last Monday, a week ago today. If you want to see that video, feel free to go back. It should be a couple videos back. It was about the impromptu projector comparison. John came up on and visited with us about his thoughts. But we had the UB5040, the Valerian Pro 2, the LS9000, the LS12000, the JVC NZ500, and the Epson QL3000. And my takeaway from that, I've been around these projectors a long time. My takeaway is when you put up a star field, when it is full black, the JVC crushes everything. It does. It's really good. But when you get outside and you do things like Godzilla's Atomic Breath, Jonathan's favorite movie, it doesn't have the brightness. And you always gravitate back towards, if you're comparing it against the QL3000, and I know they're two totally different projectors, but you compare it against the QL3000 and the QL wins every time. Every time. It doesn't have as good of ANSI. Interesting contrast is not nearly as good. It's like 200 to 1 or something like that. So to me, that's where it's at. And JJ says, oh, you think darkness is your ally. You merely adopted by the dark. I was born in it and molded by it. So I'm assuming he is a JVC guy. And that is great. The problem I have with this, and again, this is all subjective. This is all opinion. This is all my opinion, is you have to have a bat cave, as Mustang 5.0 is alluding to here. And really, a bat cave is what is required to take advantage of those absurdly high native contrast numbers. Otherwise, you're going to run into a roadblock because any reflection from walls, from clothing, from ceiling, from anything is going to erode that native contrast, that black floor that we love from the JVCs. And most rooms are not like that. And the more I'm in this space, the more rooms I put together, the more people I help, the more I appreciate a room that is not a bat cave. Again, it is opinion. I do not speak for the industry. This is just my opinion. I've been in a lot of rooms. I put together a lot of rooms. I've helped a lot of people. I think a bat cave is not aesthetically welcoming to people. And I feel like if the room is, and people may sit on all different points of this, but I feel like if the room is more aesthetically pleasing, if it's not just black everywhere, people will have a tendency to use it more, especially the rest of the family. I think we focus on, a lot of us, how much we use it instead of focusing on how much the family uses it. And my wife, especially, she is much more of an aesthetic being. She appreciates the looks of things. Why she settled with me, I have no idea. But she appreciates how things look and how things make her feel. So being in a bat cave is not really nearly as approachable as being in a well lit room for her. And if you're in a well lit room, that native contrast, crumple it up, throw it out the window, just gone. So to me, brightness wins out. And in most of the watching that I see for content, brightness is a huge part of it. Sure, there's dark scenes, but I think there are way more bright scenes. There is way more bright content than there is dark content out there. And if we're focusing on the dark content, great, but I think you're going to get more out of something that does really well at the bright. Trade off here, pivot. If you got a small screen, let's say 110, 115, 120, and you don't want to go to a TV, you want a projector because of acoustic transparency, all that stuff. JVC NC500, gonna be awesome. It's going to be incredible because you're going to have brightness because the screen is so small. You're going to max out at like 150 to 160 nits depending on the screen. You can do more if you do like a Studio Tech 130, gain 30% over a neutral 1.0 gain. So that can be really good. But as you move to bigger and bigger screens, brighter and brighter projectors really start to run away with it. And I was on Team JVC. I still am on Team JVC, just not about they dominate everything. I like JVCs and I think they have their use case. But then I went to, and I recognize that this is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum price wise, but I went to the Griffin and I've seen the M4K 15s, which are 5 to 6,001 native contrast. That's what the Griffin is. The brightness exhibits an audible response for me. I never got that from the Black Floor projector. But when I see the brightness, I actually say something. And it's something that I've noted in all the projector comparisons we've done. Brightness will make people react. Black Floor is a nice to have and it's cool, but it never makes people go, holy crap. That never comes out. So I think there's something to be said about that too. Let me catch up on comments here. JVC crushes it, might be okay. It doesn't crush it. But speaking of Black Floor, I was watching during the demos A Quiet Place, and that demo came up quite a bit for Black Floor at Jonathan's when we were doing the projector comparison. While the JVC had better blacks, when I saw that on the Griffin, it just looked better. I realized that, and this is Christie with a Mad VR. The Christie's tone mapping by itself, abysmal. Like, horrific. Really bad. Really, really bad. So when I saw it on the JVC, I'm like, man, that looks pretty good. And then I saw it on the QL3000 and it was brighter and you could see more detail and you just assumed, well, that's not how it should be. And to a point it wasn't. But then I saw it on the Griffin with the Mad VR and the points where you couldn't really see any detail on the JVC, you saw lots of stuff on the Griffin. And how it blended everything together, right or wrong, because I can't say, because we don't have a mastering monitor, so I can't say for 100% what the Mad VR was doing, differing from the JVC or differing from the Epson, which one was correct. I have always sided with the Mad VR and it getting as close as possible to the source, but in full transparency, you could never tell unless you have a mastering monitor. I found the end result from that fully subjective because I haven't seen it on a JVC with a Mad VR. So this is fully subjective. On the Christie with the Mad VR, no question. Just way better. Colors, granted, it was calibrated. I could be shooting myself. There was a lot of differences. There were a lot of variables, but it was better. So I wasn't, the dark scene, I wasn't disappointed that I didn't have the blacks at all. That whole scene, Kaleidoscape calls it red light emergency. Dark scene. Whole thing. Never once did I think, man, I wish this could be blacker. No, not at all. And that's with 5,700 to 1 native contrast and high hundreds, probably just under 1,000 intrazine. Take that for what it is. But to me, the more I'm around this, so going back, the more I'm around this, the more I value brightness over native contrast. And that's not to say that I don't want native contrast. I think the sweet spot is 10,000 to 1. And that's a hard ask for a lot of projectors because a lot of projectors are going to be in the 5 to 7,000, if that. A lot of them are far lower than that. 10,000 to 1 with brightness. Oh, it's so good. So good. Herc Dryer says, I love brightness right up until a dark scene comes up and it looks like you're looking through a gray fog and it pulls me out. Maybe. I do notice that on Starfields, but how often does that happen? Even on 1917, Waking Up in Eucharist, what the brightness does for that scene is far outweighs for me what the darkness does. So while it can pull me out in dark scenes, it's got to be a low APL scene for that to work. Because even if you have a dark sky, if the rest of the scene isn't dark, it just becomes intra. And then you're limited to, say, like the JVC, I think is 500 or so to 1. The Epsons are around there, 400 or so to 1. The Christie's well above that. But it all comes back to that rating. And they're a lot closer than you may think in that regard. So how often does that actually happen? Do you get a full Starfield where that becomes an issue? Maybe if we're saying every movie, and I'm being excessive there, 1 or 2 frames, not frames, but small scenes where you get a Starfield. Maybe it's a pan and they're looking at the sky and then it comes down or something like that. It doesn't happen to be very often that I've noticed. Wiley Elris says, to be fair to the Batcave boys, I've seen Velvet Rooms with clever LED lighting. It makes them look great and not watching a movie. True, but my wife's not going to appreciate that. Every guy under the sun would appreciate that. My wife's not. It's got to be fabrics. It's got to be the touch and how it makes you feel. And the LEDs, they're not going to make her feel great. Just saying. Maybe my wife's weird, but she's not a man, at least that I know of. Steve McGelly says, unless you have velvet on your front walls in our back cave, you aren't getting everything out of the JVC. I agree. My previous theater did have velvet, and it was amazing. It was awesome for the screen size, but then you go bigger, and you're like, no, I am not going back. I value brightness over native contrast. That does not mean that you need to. I think there are 2 camps, and we saw this when we did it at Ryan Kramer's. We were doing the QL 7000 against the NZ 900 against the Sony Bravia 9. You had 2 camps, and you had roughly half of people wanted the native contrast and half the people wanted brightness. So I think it's just how you're wired, what your life experiences are, what your expectations are. There's nothing wrong with this. So long story short, I think it's important that people need or should figure out which camp they're in the design for that accordingly. I've told you my opinion. That does not mean you need to fall into that opinion. You simply need to determine which camp, black or light, darkness or lightness. Which way do you go? And if you determine that, it's going to help you figure out how you're going to design the room, what type of equipment you want to do, your screen choices, all of that. But you got to determine which side of that coin you fall on. I can tell you my opinion. I'm team light. I'm not on the dark side. Though I wish I was with Vader. I'm over here with Master Yoda, which is where I am. You got to figure out which side of the force you're on. So nothing wrong with either side. Being in the middle, I think, is cool. 10,000 to 1, if we're calling that middle, and then all the brightness, so you get both. That's ideal. That's the centerist. I don't know what we would call that. A neutral party, maybe? I'm making this weird face. But 10,001 and all the bright, that's ideal. But that's a bit harder to get to. See, but there are times when I want to have lights on that I wish I had a QL 3000 or 7,000. So maybe I just need to do what Jonathan did. You may find you're not missing, you're not wanting. I would encourage you to come out and try it. You can come to Kansas City and give it a try, and you can figure out, is it bothering me? I mean, we can go to Jonathan so you can see both and right next to each other. You can determine, hey, do I feel like I'm sacrificing going team brightness? If not, do that. If yes, join the dark side. E4 Superfly, that's why I can't wait for micro LED walls to become more affordable. I just can't handle gray bars. Yeah, they have their own issues. You're trading, right? You're trading one issue for another. Your panel gaps, massive amounts of heat being generated in a lot of them. The contrast in a lot of them, the native isn't fantastic. So 6 one way, half a dozen another. You're just changing issues that you have to worry about. Sure, you're fixing some stuff, but you're breaking some other things. I literally laughed out loud at the brightness of Cam's M4K25, the 9001 contrast near 300 nits. Yeah, it's absurd. When you see that, I laughed actually when I saw it for the first time at Cameron's. Cameron's is one of my good friends, lives down in Texas. He's a dealer, and he has an M4K. At the time, I think when you saw it, Derek, it was an M4K 15. Maybe you've seen it recently, but he went to the 25. And I laughed just seeing the Kaleidoscape menu. It's absurd. That's the sweet spot to me, is roughly 10,000 to 1 and 300 nits. It's great. Ranta says, have you watched the movie Sisu? I think you would really like it. I haven't seen part 2 yet, but I can recommend the part 1. It was awesome action, very little dialogue, excellent action. Yes, I have seen Sisu, and man, was it a ride. I had no idea what to expect. That man just started killing, and it never stopped. It is like a Ukrainian version of John Wick with far less dialogue and more violence. It was great. If you're in the mood for it. My son's ringer for me on his phone is Darth Vader's theme. I love Vader. Speaking of Vader, I wish they made a Vader movie that showed the cinematic universe why everybody fears Vader. I feel like he comes out kind of being a pansy in a lot of the movies, like Solo and not Solo, but what's the movie? Obi-Wan. That movie, he was not as badass. Like, it needed to be awesome. The ending of Rogue One made me feel how Vader should be felt. It was, I'm a badass, and everyone fears me. Full black scene, and then the lightsaber turns on, can't see anything. People are running and screaming and dying and blood everywhere. That was how I felt Vader should be portrayed. And in every movie, people are scared of him, but it's not this like evil presence where people uncontrollably run away and he just dominates it. That's, to me, how Vader should be felt. And maybe he was felt that way in Obi-Wan and they just didn't do it very well cinematically. I don't know, but man, they need to do Vader some more justice. All right, so somebody had a question earlier. We're going to roll back up. Home Theater Denmark says, quick question regarding your projector test the other day. Do you think the Epson should have spent the money making 11,000 and 12,000 better instead of making the 9,000? No. I don't know what the process is for the 9,000. I don't know what the process is for bidding projectors. I'm going to talk about this in the process of bidding CPUs and RAM and all that stuff. This is what that side of the industry does. I have no idea what these guys do, but maybe it's something similar. So CPU manufacturers, they make dies, or at least they used to, in GPUs. They do this kind of the same thing. They make these dies, and then they will test and see, hey, what is this one capable of? And if it's not capable of full spec, they say, okay, this one can't do everything, so we're going to make it this. And they just sell it under a different name a lot of times. So they'll turn things off because they're not present, or they'll remove things, or They don't get a great bin. And I think TVs do this a lot of times, which is why really big TVs are really hard to do because the panels are bigger. You have more potential points for failure for all the pixels. It becomes problematic to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So in this context, I kind of wonder if it's the same thing. The other part is we as enthusiasts are a very small part of the market segment, a lot smaller than we think we are. The 9000, I think, is going to sell really well in big box stores because it provides a more approachable price point. Joe Schmo coming off the street does not care as much as we do, not nearly so, about all the nitty gritty stuff. And he frankly doesn't know any better. He's in the ignorance is bliss stage. And that's okay. As I tell people, ignorance is cheap. You don't spend as much when you don't know. And I think that's where this 9000 exists in the direction that it was designed to go. Not everything is going to be pushed towards being the best of the best of the best. So the 9000, I think, is an important part of the Epson lineup. The 5040, or I think it was the 6040 or 6050 or 50, I don't remember which one it was. That was available, and I think until last year or earlier this year, that we could actually, as dealers, still buy them and sell them. So the 9000 replaces that, is really what it's doing. I recognize that those projectors probably had they used the ultra black panels. They probably had a better image, but the 9000 replaces that. And they probably couldn't do much better. Otherwise it was going to cannibalize the 11,000 and 12,000 because it was going to be too similar, would be another reason. I think the 12,000 is great. During the comparison, it really showed how great the 12,000 was for the money. I realize it's gotten more expensive, but for the money, the 12,000 does a really good job. In a lot of cases, like we've talked about, what is good enough native contrast, it is in a lot of cases good enough, and it's ANSY's good. It's in the compromise for the good enough is you're paying less. And you get 4K 120, you get all of that stuff. So you're always trading back and forth. Price, certain features, and in order to get all of them, you got to pay more. So it's always a question of what are you giving up? What am I gaining when I'm giving up something else? There's always something, whether it be a particular feature, whether it be money, whether it be aesthetic, size, noise is a big one that I saw somebody mention, that having the M4K or those big projectors they're not quiet. So food for thought. Tiki Time says, have you ever looked at Jennifer Gala YouTube home theater video calibration site? A lot of YouTube Atmos. No. Should I? Comment on the video, not in chat, but comment on the video so that I can go back to that because I will forget. But mention that in a comment and I'll come back and look at it. Am I the only one that thinks Star Wars is over? Star Wars sucks. I'm just going to say it. I don't like any Star Wars. I don't like most of the Star Wars movies. Them fighting words, but I really don't like the original trilogy. 4, 5, and 6 are really boring and cheesy. I'm not a fan. I like the prequels actually more than 4, 5, and 6. Them fighting words, don't like them. Rogue One is my favorite. I enjoy Rogue One. Most of them, not good. I think it's an overdone, overemphasized, kind of cheesy thing. I recognize that people like them. I am evidently a very bad person for saying that stuff, but they're just not for me. Ben Williams says the same thing. On a serious note, this podcast lost its cool when you said French crepes are not that good. Did I say that? I might have said that. French crepes are okay. I'd take an American pancake because I'm fat, right? There's more of that sugary goodness in an American pancake than a French crepe. That's what it comes down to. Superfly is that I'm a fat, overzealous American. Of course, I'm going to choose the thing that's bigger. That's our entire lifestyle. Bigger! That's what we live for. That's all it comes down to. I actually I like burritos and stuff, like my breakfast burrito wrapped in a crepe. Oh, man, so good. So we can go both ways? Maybe? Can we still be friends? Yes? No? Maybe? There was another topic I wanted to talk about today, and I don't remember what it was. Native contrast. You said, well, that's because they are. Let's be real. A Midwestern cinnamon roll, not like Cinnabon or any of that BS. A Midwestern cinnamon roll made by a good baker. Whole man. You're going to be hard pressed to find anything better. Going to find anything better. Tiki Time, did you use MLV to soundproofing your new home theater? No, I did not. So what is in my theater is the construction is timber framing, sidewalls, timber framing, R13, Risset clips, 7/8 inch hat, channel 3/4 OHB, green glue, 3/4 inch OSB, and then off at the Officina Acustica room, a foot off of that. The ceiling is timber joists, R38, another level of R38, and then another faux interior joist system, not the main joist. It hangs down because of a beam. And then you've got Risset clips, pat channel, 3/4 inch OSB, green glue, 3/4 inch OSB. And there's floating clouds on the ceiling. So I didn't use that. You can't really hear high frequency outside my room. And the MLV are going to do bupkis for the low frequency, which is what I have a challenge with, which is what most rooms are going to have a challenge with, is getting the low bass, like 30 and under. I'm not going to stop that. The wavelengths are too long. It ain't going to do crap. So mine goes up and it gets into the kitchen, rattle stuff. It is what it is. Derek says the 9000 is not a great entry into the very competitive sub 4K entry market. An updated LS 12,000 should have been moved down to that price point, and an updated QB 3500 lumens. Maybe, but I think we're running into some brightness walls with these projectors. So while that would have been great, I agree. I don't know from a cost perspective if that made sense, because you'd have to engineer an entire new line. And this projector could have been, maybe this projector, and I'm playing devil's advocate here because I don't know. I agree with you, but from a business perspective, maybe the LS 9000 was something that was shelved long time ago because it sucked too much to be what now is the LS 12,000, and now they've brought it back to fill a void underneath. Maybe, I don't know because I'm not Epson, but just throwing things out there. What you say would have been awesome. I agree. I can just understand why they didn't. There may be some technology limitations that they're running into for brightness, because I think everybody's running into that wall. I mean, what projector using that type of technology is above 3,500 lumens? 3,300 lumens, really? None. You're really getting into DLPs and other things to get the light output. So there's something holding people back. It's crazy how much smaller the MadVR Experience Center is than it was previously. It's not any smaller. The visual part that you can see when you walk into it absolutely is, but it's all still there. It is absolutely all still there. It's just the front 7 and rear 7 feet are eaten up by acoustics and this enormous subwoofer. Still there, just I think better utilized. There's a lot of unused dead space. Derek says Epson seems conflicted. Are we going to be higher price tag PJ or a jack of all trades manufacturer? I don't know that they're doing anything weird. That commercial projectors have always been really expensive. So I don't think they're changing their identity. They just added a new SKU into the residential line that wasn't there before, based a lot on what they do commercially. So I don't think they're really confused. I think they know who they are. They're just expanding the residential line. Tiki Time asks, can my neighbors hear when I crank up the system? No. I'm underground. Can't hear crap. Even when we're rocking 120 of 130 dB. I've never once got a complaint. So, no. No complaints. And remember, there's concrete walls on the outside, so the sound would have to go up and over. And I think it mainly just goes into my kitchen. The bass. You can't really hear the high frequencies, just the bass starts shaking stuff. My wife complains. She's like, "You're rattling stuff." Sorry. This is what it is. So sorry. Well, I think this may wrap up this one. The next stream. When is our next stream? Checking. Next stream is, I think, Thursday. We're going to talk about screen size versus distance, which I think is another important topic to be had. And then after that, the following week, we're going to talk about the difference in opinion on movies, because that is a weird one. The difference in opinion on movies. How can people's opinions be so varied and wild? I mean, some people say this movie is amazing, and I watch it and it's absolute trash. I don't know. Superfly, do your subs also rearrange your upstairs furniture? No, it's not that bad. They really just rattle some glass and stuff. My wife makes it sound like it's way more than it actually, worse than it actually is, because she thinks the world's going to end. Like I am going to be the epicenter of the black hole that creates and engulfs the earth. That's what's going to happen. That's what she fears from her anxiety. It's not going to happen. I say that, and tomorrow you'll see in the newspaper, black hole emerges from MadVR Experience Center. Wouldn't that be something? But Thursday, we're going to talk about screen size versus viewing distance. So that'll be an interesting one. A lot of this stuff that we're talking about is born on the idea because the MadVR Experience Center takes things to such egregious and extreme lengths. Like we sit 9.5 feet from 165-inch diagonal, floor to ceiling, wall to wall screen. So I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on that one on Thursday. Hopefully we can get a stream in with Jonathan this week. I think we're off to Iowa for a home theater tour this weekend. So yeah, hopefully we'll talk again before Thursday. War of the Worlds with Ice Cube is still the best. I'm going to ban you, Superfly. You're going to go away. You're never going to be allowed to come back. And that'll be that. We'll never have to see comments about that again. No crepes, no Ice Cube, nothing. Just be gone. So, well, I will see you guys on Thursday. If you have any ideas on new topics, please drop them in the comments of this video, not in chat, because I won't see them if you put them in chat. But if you put them in comments, I absolutely will. So if you got any notes, I want to see whoever posted that thing about the Jennifer link for the Atmos and calibration tracks and stuff. That would be awesome. I have not finished Iron Eagle, Toasterone. I have not finished, not Iron Eagle. I've seen Iron Eagle. Hansel and Gretel. I've not finished it. Okay. Haven't finished it. So it's on my to-do list this week. Hopefully we can make it happen. But before we get drawn into any more comments, I'm going to wrap it up. See you guys on Thursday. If you have any ideas on future videos that you'd like for topics, put them in the comments. I do read them. I'm going to go through some comments today. I try and respond to all of them. And we'll go from there. So until then, enjoy your home theater journey. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out by snatching this QR code. I can help you out with either questions or equipment or pricing or whatever you need. I promise I'm not pushy. And we can get you taken care of. But again, enjoy your home theater journey. Stay safe out there. And we will see you Thursday